Okay, so it's been a minute, huh? Figure it's about time for a channel update, so sorry about the wait for all that. So let's just jump right into what am I working on, where is this channel going, what's the next project, so on and so forth. So firstly, I've been pretty busy with school. Some of you know that I'm close to getting my master's degree in criminal justice, advanced counterterrorism, and homeland security. I've got about 3 weeks left in the term I'm in now, then I have a week off, and then the last 10-week term, and I'll be done with that. So hopefully whenever that's sort of off my shoulders, I'll be able to devote a little bit more time to this. But big things are changing, I believe, at work for me too, in my 9-to-5 job, so that may actually pick up some of the slack and any free time I may get from being done with school. But let's talk about where I'm going now. What's the next thing to look for on the channel? Most of you are familiar with my sort of XD Franken gun, and I'll tell you why I've got that up here in this inert weapon that's a GLock 17. I hate the GLock grip angle, okay? If you've been around my channel for a long time or have trained with me personally, you've probably heard me talk about it. I think the GLock itself is a wonderful weapon. On paper, I just don't personally enjoy shooting them because of this big swept back hump they've got on them. It sort of flares the front end up. I carried an M9 in the Marine Corps. I've always been a fan of the 1911 grip angle. If this is what I came up on, I think I would love it, but it's not what points naturally to me, and so I've just never been a fan of it. It's a training issue just like anything else, but I've got so many tens of thousands of rounds out of weapons with 1911 grip angles that I just didn't see any utility or enough utility in making the swap over to GLock. Just for logistics sake, because of how much retraining I would have to do and getting rid of that the tendency to present a GLock higher up out there. So, but also with my 9-to-5 job, I have to maintain quite a few instructor level firearms certifications, namely the NRA Law Enforcement Firearms Instructor certification for handgun, shotgun, and patrol rifle. And when you go to these instructor courses, they're usually pretty strict, or can be, on what kind of duty gear. And these are all law enforcement based certifications. So the duty gear that they require, sometimes level 2 or level 3 holsters, they don't want this kind of retention device, or they prohibit this item here on this range, and so on and so forth. And when you start customizing a weapon, finding holsters that fit those types of law enforcement parameters can be pretty difficult. And the first thing people would say, well, why, just leave the gun stock. You don't need these enhancements. And you're totally right. You don't need these enhancements. But America, I want these enhancements, okay? I don't think there's any point at this point, if you're looking at from a duty capacity, why you would argue for a weapon light. Should it be the only light you have on you? No. But are there times and situations where having a weapon light on your pistol is helpful? Of course there are. So we've seen that sort of we've pulled that from rifles on to handguns over the last 10-15 years in the law enforcement world. And the next big thing that you've seen made the transition are red dot reflex sights. They've been using those in competition for forever and a day, and you've seen them move over from into the tactical world from competitive shooting. And there's a lot of utility in it if you know how to use these the right way on a handgun. And when I say the right way, there's a million ways to set them up, and there's lots of debate on should you sacrifice your rear sight like I've done, or should you have it milled in, lower to the bore axis, blah, 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 co-witness this and do away with that, and rear sight behind or rear sight before or whatever. You can debate that all the day if you want to, but when it comes to looking through your weapon on a linear draw presentation and finding that red dot, if you know how to do that the right way, it is like cheating. Now, if you see this red dot, it's pretty banged up. It's seen a lot of use and a lot of hard wear, and it is running like a top. It's never burned me to not have a backup sight, so on and so forth. So your mileage may vary, but using a red dot is something that I feel like I can't go backwards from. If given the opportunity, I will always run a red dot on a pistol now. It is like cheating, especially at intermediate and long range, ramping up your speed. Even at close range where you're point shooting, I tend to just accidentally find that red dot, even if I'm not necessarily looking for it. I've got enough draw presentations that I can call a headshot at 5 yards without my sights with this handgun. Once again, your mileage may vary. That comes with a lot of establishing neural pathways and muscle memory, if you will. But I don't necessarily need the dot to do that, but it's nice to have it there, even if it's accidental. That being said, the next thing on this weapon that you don't see a lot of people on duty with or concealed carrying with is a compensator. And I honestly, this is just my opinion, I think that's going to be the next thing that makes a jump from competitive shooting into everyday tactical and defensive use. Are these micro comps and smaller comps that don't necessarily change the profile of the weapon drastically, doesn't shave off so much recoil pulse that you're having to do a bunch of internal changes or loading certain kinds of rounds to work. But those things can happen with compensators. You're biting off a whole other animal when you start playing with how that recoil pulse affects, the cycle of the weapon and all that other kind of stuff. So, and then you can find yourself chasing springs, is what I call it. You shave off a little bit of recoil pulse. You need a lighter recoil spring. Then all of a sudden you don't have enough to get the slide to come forward. So you're reducing weight of your slide, and then you're adding weight with RMRs and blah 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 blah. You can find yourself chasing things, but when you get it right, it's a dream, especially on a 9mm, to shoot a compensated weapon. If the whole goal in defense or tactical shooting, just like in competitive shooting on a very fundamental level, is speed and accuracy. So speed and accuracy wins competitions. Speed and accuracy wins gunfights. So at the very core principles, the most rudimentary things that we're concerned with, these things matter. Now, the one big thing that matters more in defensive shooting and tactical shooting than it does in competitive shooting is reliability. And that's not to say that having a weapon that's not reliable won't burn you in a competition, but it doesn't burn you like it does in the real world, and that's with bullet holes and losing gunfights. So you are potentially affecting reliability when you get into those kind of parts. But I have made the commitment to get this gun to run right. It runs right, and so I have no doubts about reliability with this firearm. Now, so what am I talking? I said all that to explain the philosophy of use. I'm not asking you to agree with it, but I'm not going to debate you in the comments section if you believe in the myth of altering duty or defensive handguns and all this other kind of stuff and blah 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 blah. This gun has had many tens of thousands of rounds through it, probably more rounds through it in its current setup than most people will ever fire out of a weapon they own. So do what you want to do. I'm completely comfortably, legally, ethically, and practically with this type of weapon for my uses. Now, that being said, it is hard to find holsters, especially level 2, level 3 retention holsters, that will accommodate all this in a platform like XD. Now, there are law enforcement departments that are carrying XDs whole part and parcel for the whole department, and there's also plenty of individual officers out there in law enforcement that are carrying these. And why am I talking about law enforcement? Because if law enforcement officers are carrying it, if they're selling it at those quantities, the accessory market tends to follow that. But it'll never be as prolific of a weapon as the GLock. So, because I have to maintain all these instructor certifications, it requires certain kinds of gear. And even though I'm more in the training and big picture corporate management role at the firm I work for, there are times where I might have to go out there and do something special. Some special coverage thing that maybe we're not going to send just the everyday officer to do. And so I need my gear to be squared away as well and meet all the company's policies and best practices for duty weapons and all that kind of stuff in terms of gear. So I decided that I'm going to switch over to the dark side. And when I say the dark side, I mean GLock. And I know half of you, especially those of you who have known me for a while, known me personally, just had a heart attack. So I'll let you pull yourself back up onto your desktop or cell phone so that we can finish the video. Yes, I'm going to step away from this and go to a GLock, assuming that I can get it to run as reliably and trust it like I trust this. And I believe I have found a way of doing that. A company that many of you are familiar with called Lone Wolf, I'm going to get this out of the way for a second, makes a lot of aftermarket GLock accessories. And one of the things they make is a frame. Okay? And as I started reading about these frames, they've had them out for a while. I've been reading about them for a while. And they at first had some reliability issues and fitment issues when they first came out. But right now, everything I'm reading, talking to people who run them in competitions and use them as defensive guns, are having as good a success with them as they would a factory Glock. And so what I'm running here is the Lone Wolf, I believe they call it the Alpha frame or whatever it is, but it's a 1911 grip angle frame. And if I put this side by side, in fact, I'll run it on top of this this Glock 17 inert weapon, and hopefully I'm getting the angle right, but you can see just how much, there you go, if I get it all lined up, just how much of the back of that Glock profile in this hump here sticks out past the profile of this 1911 grip angle. And they've managed, the Lone Wolf has managed to do that without disrupting the angle that the magazine meets the internals. So they're not having any feed issues. They haven't actually changed the angle that the magazine goes in. They've just reprofiled the grip along this back side so that even though the magazine would be entering in the same angle, you're not getting the back of that huge swell in the back, which is what really pushes that angle up and gets the front end to nose up for people who are used to presenting a 1911 grip angle. So now I have the option of running a Glock, so Glock magazine, Glock internal parts, all the repeatability, reliability, options in the aftermarket that are there for Glock-based weapons without the one thing I hate about the Glock, and that's the grip angle. And so I figured if I'm going to build a Glock without a Glock frame, why not just take it to that next level in my style of doing things, and to make a Glock with no or as little Glock parts as possible. So that's sort of how I'm making this fun, and rather than just going through the expense of building a gun that makes my 9-to-5 job easier because it's easier to find gear and stuff, and I sold a rifle to fund all this, but I'm going to go ahead and just build this with as few Glock parts as possible. It's going to be a mock Glock. So what I've got ordered is one of the Lone Wolf Alpha Wolf slides, with a slide cut package pre-milled for an RMR. I'm going to run, this is the TBRC, Texas Black Rifle Company micro comp. This is actually purchased to run on this Glock. I just tested it out to see how it would affect the cycle of the XD. Not that it's going to translate exactly to this Glock 17 I'm building, but it's similar in size and weight and slide and all that kind of stuff. So, and I had no feeding issues out of the XD with that comp, and it still works every bit as good as I would expect a comp to work with a very, very small profile. So that will roll over here. I'm going to get the Alpha Wolf slide. It's the full Glock 17 size slide. I was the first going to do a 19 and build off of there, but everything in the 19 size was back ordered, and so rather than wait for who knows how long for that, I just went ahead and was going to build it off the 17 frame. Now, it's a Gen 3, and our company issues Gen 4 Glock 17, so I couldn't run a Gen 4 Glock 17 on this frame waiting for the slide cuts and all that stuff on the slide I'm getting. So I've got one of our old school Gen 3 Glock 22 slides, and I'm running a tungsten guide rod with a tunable spring. You know, I say tunable spring, it's easy to take the spring off with an Allen key and swap those out to tune the gun appropriately. And my whole goal with these tactical race guns is I want to be able to go to the store, buy the cheapest factory reloads I can find, and never have a cycle problem, or at least not to any higher degree than I would off a factory gun. So when I say tune the weapon, that's what I'm tuning it to. I'm tuning it to the lowest common denominator, 115 grain, off-the-shelf factory reloads. If it'll run that, it'll run everything. And so that's what I'm tuning the gun to. And so I'm getting the benefit of the added weight, the cyclic weight of a tungsten guide rod, but really the ease of changing that spring out to make it work. The slide that I'm getting is going to be stainless, so I've got my little 3%er back plate that's going to go on it. I'm also going to run the Alpha Wolf barrel. Their highest end, Lone Wolf's highest end match grade barrel. It's a threaded barrel, obviously, for the compensator. And I'm getting it titanium nitride coated in that dull gold. So it's going to be a black frame, stainless slide, and a gold barrel with a black compensator. So who knows what it'll look like. It's going to look pretty funky outside of the holster, but it should work fine. I've got Lone Wolf's proprietary aluminum magwell for this frame. It's amazing how small this frame is. Okay, so it feels like you're just grabbing a magazine. So a lot of people may not like that, but I mean, I'm getting such a good two-hand purchase on this weapon. It's amazing, even compared to the XD. And it's significantly smaller while still maintaining the grip angle I want. And I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail in this video on what's different about this frame than a standard GLock frame, other than the obvious that you can see. It's sort of already got an undercut there. They've profiled the grip angle. It's got a proprietary magazine well. It's got the beaver tail and so on and so forth. They've really sort of taken a lot of the complaints that GLock gets and incorporated that into this frame, and they've done it long enough now that it's reliable. There are interchangeable back straps to get a wider profile, but I prefer the small one. It's got a 1911 and Picatinny, a 1919 and a Picatinny rail sections on here for running different kinds of stuff that sometimes it's hard to run on a GLock. But if the other thing that you can't really tell that I'm running in this frame is the Johnny Glock's custom trigger. So I'm going to try to get this on the camera where you can really see it. But it is a fabulous, fabulous trigger. So, okay, obviously it's a safety check, pointing in a safe direction. I'm in my own classroom by myself underground. And so just watch. All right, so that's all the pre-travel. It's basically just enough to get the trigger safety out of the way. Okay, I'm on the wall there. Very little movement. It's broken. It's done. Shots fired. Cycle it. Watch this reset. And there it is. Ready to break again. Phenomenal trigger by Johnny Glocks. If you aren't familiar with him, everybody's into the Zev stuff and Apex stuff, and there's nothing against those triggers. I'm not saying they're not good triggers. I'm not trying to hate on you if that's what you've got, and if they work for you and the safeties are still functional, more power to you. But you are not going to find a better trigger than what Johnny can make, and he's so detailed that, I mean, you will have a conversation with him on the phone before he puts a trigger kit together, so he knows exactly what you want. And he'll even, if you have videos and stuff of you shooting on YouTube, he'll watch those videos and deduct from your style of shooting what might help you in the trigger kit. It's as collaborative of an aftermarket part that I have ever bought from anything for any manufacturing. I mean, it's just amazing. You're getting treated like you're, Jerry Michulik or something, and somebody's making a custom part for your gun. It's just amazing what he's doing. I don't know how he has the time to do it and the way he's doing it with the level of service and quality he's doing. And I'm telling you, a lot of you folks out there with these guns, especially Glocks, buying all these trigger kits, and you think your gun is still safe because you function check it, you might want to go find Johnny GLock on YouTube and watch some of his videos where he's taking these big name trigger kit companies, putting them in a Glock 17, Glock 19, Glock whatever, and they're failing drop tests. Okay, Glocks are a stamped weapon, a high volume assembly line type gun, and there's some variance and tolerances by design. So all those tolerance variants put together, you still get something very dependable, no matter which area of the spectrum your individual parts are from. But what happens is when you got people making these also conveyor belt type aftermarket triggers, a lot of times they're cutting corners, and you may have a $175 trigger in your gun that if it's dropped, it'll go off. So you might want to think about that when you're putting aftermarket parts in there. I really suggest if you're a Glock person, go look up Johnny Glocks on YouTube and find his stuff, because he's not going to send it to you if it's not safe. And then if you have an issue with it, you're going to have an open line of communication basically forever with the guy, and he's going to make it right one way or the other. He has no idea I'm putting this on YouTube. He hasn't paid me. He didn't give me. I'm a customer like everybody else. I just want to tell you when something's great, and it's the best aftermarket gun purchase experience I've ever had, both in just the quality of what I received, and then how much detail went into designing it so that I ended up with exactly what I wanted. And in fact, the reality is that when I got it, it was a great trigger kit, but it was a little different break than what I kind of wanted. Within 2 days, I had another part in the mail. Take the trigger kit out, swap one part, and it is exactly what I want. So I'm just telling you, he's going to make it right. He's going to get you exactly what you want. And there's just no way to beat what he's doing these triggers. I have a hard time believing that anybody can even match it. He is a guru when it comes to guns, but it's specifically Glocks. And so that's the trigger kit I'm running in there. So really, really highly recommend that. So this is the direction I'm going. I'm obviously going to run the weapon light on this gun. It's amazing that with that compensator on a Glock 17, with that TLR H1 weapon light and a Trijicon RMR that will be milled in the slide running suppressor height sights, I was able to just go to Safariland's website and find a holster that fits it all. It's amazing to me. Like it took me months to find holsters that in fact, I never found a level 3 holster that would work with that XD without doing tons of modifications myself. In fact, with the passive retention Kydex holster I'm wearing now, because I'm inside. I'm not out there in public. I'm in my classroom today. I had to order that custom, and then even after it came in, I had to make modifications to account for the compensator. So it's just amazing to be able to have a gun that's every bit as trick as this, when this is finished, and just be able to go order a Safariland ALS holster is just, for those of you who aren't in the law enforcement world or private contracting world like I'm in, maybe that doesn't mean anything to you, but it is crazy to be able to run something like this and order an off-the-shelf holster. It's something that I've never experienced the ability to do with this. So now I can take the flashlight off and run it in Serpa all day, every day, which is fine. But if I really want to run the flashlight, it gets incredibly difficult to run it in a retention holster. So anyway, that's the direction I'm going. This will never leave the stable. Okay, this is not going anywhere. This is sentimental to me. But I'm going to take this philosophy of use and run it on a Glock with very few little Glock parts, and have no doubts that I'll be able to tune it in a very short order to be every bit as dependable as the XD, and then have the dependability, the reliability, the accessibility in terms of aftermarket parts at good prices, and holsters and gear and all that kind of stuff in the Glock world, but still keep my 1911 grip angle and the style and philosophy of duty weapon that I think fits what I want. So, and do it with the best striker fired trigger that's ever clicked a striker. I mean, it's just fantastic what Johnny's doing with this. So anyway, stay tuned. I just wanted to pump this out here. I was going to wait till this is finished, but I'll probably have another 3 or 4 weeks before the slide and all that come in for this gun. So, but once it's here, you expect to see this fade a little bit out of the picture, and this really sort of step in and replace it. And I'll try to get a lot of footage in the process of tuning it all in and that, and hopefully, in my mind, this gun will represent sort of what I think duty weapons will look like in 10 or 15 years, where they're running red dots, flashlights, compensators, match grade barrels with really high quality triggers, low reset, little pre-travel. I think that's where we're all headed. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me there, but the reality is, you go back not too many decades, and if you were holding a handgun with 2 hands, an instructor would tell you it's a handgun, not a hands gun. So it's amazing what people scoff at today, everybody's doing tomorrow, and I really feel like what this is going to represent is the future of defensive weapons. And for all the same reasons that we want red dots and muzzle devices and flashlights on rifles, there's every bit as the same reason, in my opinion, if not more so, on a pistol, because you only have 2 points of contact on a pistol when we're talking about compensators and recoil and acquiring your sights after recoil and all that kind of stuff. So this is sort of the future pistol, and is the way I see the future developing. And I guess we'll all find out in a couple of decades, or a decade, if I'm right. Hopefully I am, and I'm ahead of the curve, and sort of can be part of that movement going forward. So stay tuned. I'm doing some classes. I've been doing some ladies self-defense classes. It's picked up a lot. I'm doing a lot of speeches and talks about use of force. I speak at a couple of local universities here as a guest lecturer and talk about use of force a lot there. And so I've got a lot of stuff in the fire, but I'm going to start really dialing back into the channel here and pumping some good content out. So I just want to give a preview of what that content's going to sort of involve. So stick around, and as always, if you have questions or comments, if you have anybody that or any specific thing you want to see in a video, please let me know. I had a guy that started just as a YouTube follower not too long ago contact me. I was able to source a weapon that he was going to get issued at his work, put him through a pretty dynamic gunfighting class. He was able to go to a school that he was going to need to qualify at for his job and do really well. I'm not saying that success is attributed to me, but he would probably say at least some of it is. And so now he's using every day in his professional world stuff that he was able to come and get in person in terms of skills and tactics, starting as a fairly out-of-town YouTube follower. So, look, I'll do my best to facilitate whatever training you need, even if that means us organizing you coming and taking a class with me in person. That's really my passion. Obviously, YouTube is just something I do because I enjoy the YouTube community as a resource for myself, so I want to give back to it, but this is really nothing I'm making any money on, and this is not my job. Obviously, I'm not a YouTuber. I just happen to put YouTube videos out there from time to time. So find me on Facebook, WarriorX Training, obviously here on YouTube, and contact me if you need anything explained on video or if you're interested in any kind of classes. All right, guys, take care.